Hey guys, welcome to the JW Untold Truth channel. So in this video, we have the lawyer for the Association of Victims of the Jehovah Witnesses, and he's gonna tell us his experience in the trial, also what he reckons what is going to happen in the future, and also he's gonna tell us about a few things regarding the Jehovah Witnesses and the trial. And we're gonna ask him a few questions and see what we can learn from this experience that we're getting from Spain. So sit tight and let's see what's going on in Spain. And also I wanted to thank you guys for all the likes and all the comments. Just keep them coming because it's just very encouraging and it helps me to with any suggestions that you guys have. And we'll see what we can learn from this video. All right, thank you guys, and let's see what we can learn.
What are the accusations made by the Jehovah's Witnesses towards the Association of Victims?
The main reason is the name of the association itself. They want the word victim to be removed from the name of the Association of Victims. They consider that this violates their right to honor. Secondly, they are also accusing us of certain things that are also in violation that their rights of honor of their religious rights. Specifically, my defendant, both in the official website and some social networks, states that this movement, I quote, that the movement of people who have been harmed by this organization of Jehovah Witnesses around the world was born from its very foundation, specifically during the decade of the 50s. This religious organization developed a system of control of its followers that includes internal rules that affects all their members if they disobey any rules, and this works as a control that leads to an internal judgment that is very similar to the judicial of any state and the results in your dismissal or internal treatment. My client is also accused of the following rules created in this organization, includes discrimination against women, discrimination of the sexual diversity, attack and respect for other religious options, and it's very clear violation of fundamental rights of people. The result of this application of these norms creates many victims because it has led many people who have left their religion for one reason or another to loneliness, depression, and even suicide thoughts and suicide attempts. The application of these norms also makes victims of many Jehovah Witnesses family members of relatives to be expelled or disassociated individuals. Continuing under the pressure of obeying those norms of losing their family ends up affecting them psychologically, leading them to suffer from mental illness such as feelings of frustration, anxiety, depression, myalgia. Some have also ended their lives, and then other types of violations that my client carried out, such as referring to this religious organization as a destructive sect.
What is the defense against the Jehovah's Witnesses accusations?
Indeed, our defense is part of the two fundamental pillars. The first pillar is that everything that the Association of Victims that I defend says has already been said previously by many Spanish and international media. For example, anyone who searches in Google and pays attention to the news from Spain or from another country, you can find a lot of news that speaks of these sort of cases. Also speaks of what the experiences of the victims have been. We feel that the association does express the same things that what the media have already done during the decades of media, both in Spain and overseas. Such as the very famous case from the Australian Royal Commission, where the Australian Parliament concluded that the Jehovah Witnesses in Australia had hidden, so to speak, more than 1,000 sexual cases of abuse within the Jehovah Witnesses. That will be one of the many examples and the conclusion of the Australian Royal Commission. Well, what my client has expressed and to manifest is repeating what the media has said, also supporting the statements of these victims. Therefore, what is highly defended is repeating what the media says and what the victim says, no more, no less. But we also defended the case in a second pillar. We have provided 70 testimonies from people residing in Spain but also abroad, Spanish nationals, who came to verify what the victims of the association said. So we showed the courts, look at these testimonies. They speak of the sexual discrimination, of a certain discriminations in the Jehovah Witnesses that causes fear of loneliness. which may cause to attempt suicide or have committed suicide because of these reasons. When they have been expelled, also in some cases a victim speaks of a certain concealment of sexual abuse or violence discrimination against women, and above all, the fundamental pillar of those who speak of the victims are two things. Ostracism. This is the main complaint which is a person is expelled from the Jehovah Witnesses faces many times a trial without guarantees, where it is more likely to be harassed mentally, a kind of psychological torture, so to speak. Where questions without any thought of how damaging can be, and obviously can be grounds of expulsion or disfellowship. And despite of the refusal of these types of confessions, they will continue to ask more and more questions for hours. This is an illegal judicial world. Unpleasant questions for hours can be considered as degrading treatment or of psychological torture, constituting a crime of torture. Victim refers in these testimonies that we have provided, and in many others that will continue to be provided in the other legal proceedings that we have pending here, and all this obviously goes through what the victims have said. These expulsions or disfellowships are very sometimes unfair and without motivation, without proof, and leads to the most absolute ostracism. And what is ostracism? There is a rule of the Jehovah Witnesses that prevents the witnesses who remain within the organization from congregating normally with those who are expelled. According to the victims, this leads to many ruptures in the family members between parents and siblings and children, uncles, nephews, grandparents. Some have stopped talking to some members of the families that have been expelled for X reason. It can be because of smoking, getting drunk, or for example, having had a thought that can be sinful, or having an extramarital affair despite of a legal divorce. A religious divorce in Spain, in another country, no, that can also give rise to expulsion or disfellowship, and therefore your family not talking to you, nor speaking, only for minimal contact. That is, for example, talk about vital issues such as deciding, for example, the event of a death of a family, the subject of the funeral or burial, etc. And this causes serious psychological disorders in many victims. So this is so serious that it leads to many of them to make a decision, perhaps not freely, to take their own life. Some of these victims are going to present this in the trial. I think this is something that Spanish governments and that the people of this world have to know about the Jehovah Witnesses. Victims want to tell the truth. Therefore, we are in a historic moment where the victims here in Spain are telling the truth. Who knows in other countries such as Mexico, they can also tell the truth in Mexico or in other Latin America countries where the Jehovah Witnesses are.
Are the accusations of the Jehovah's Witnesses a way of scaring victims?
It is a way of intimidating, a kind of wake-up call so that anyone who makes their life public and the reasons for which they consider themselves a victim is a way of inculcating fear. So in case you decide to come out and tell your experience to the public, you can find yourself with a lawsuit from the Jehovah Witnesses. We know that many Jehovah Witnesses, statistically, the average of income level is not very high it's in a middle to lower class. It's not very high. Let's say a great economic capacity to face demands that an organization with as such income as the Jehovah Witnesses have. Therefore, it's a way to intimidate as ex-JWs, ex-Jehovah Witnesses, or victims. That is what we have been told from them. Let's say it's like to try to take away the desire to come out publicly and demands a lawsuits against the association and against the board of directors has a domino effect to a national or global level, which is the victims are being sued through the association of victims, which has generated greater frustration and greater victimization, which it has made them, let's say, stick together even more to the point that they are coming together even stronger. Now they want to fight this injustice. They now have more desire to tell the world what has happened to them within the Jehovah Witnesses organization more now than ever. Therefore, this religious organization has allowed us or have encouraged in a funny way to make the victims to tell the truth, to tell what has happened to them before and during and after being a Jehovah Witnesses. And this is a historic moment because this is a trial that are not going to just testify 12 victims of the Jehovah Witnesses, but it is that the following trial against the board of directors, there will be approximately 35 or 40, almost 40 victims of these destructive organizations of Jehovah Witnesses who are going to count with everything they have seen, they have suffered, and everything they have seen that has also occurred against other members. Therefore, we are in a historic moment where the victims who have finally desire than ever to fight this, to tell the truth. And it's something that I think will have a rebound effect, not only in Spain, but also in other countries, in other Latin America countries. This is why I believe that this religious organization has made a huge mistake, because it has allowed the victims to speak when before they did not have enough courage to do so. Now they have touched the sensitive fibers, because on top of being victims, they are suing them who consider themselves a victim. For saying that they are a victim, as if someone sued the victims of domestic violence for saying that they are victims, that seems incredible to us, because this is what is happening. This is what is happening in Spain. And I predict that it will have a rebound effect in many Latin American countries, because the Spanish-speaking countries have let me know this is what is happening around them.
What would happen if the justice rules in favor of the Jehovah's Witnesses?
Look, whether we win the trial or not, the trials against the board of directors and the victims are already won, because they are telling the truth. They are going to tell the truth about what has happened to them and what is going to be communicated. The victims have already gone to the media, and this has already come out to one of the largest newspapers in Spain. The Spanish newspaper has also printed an article on Monday. If I remember correctly, I think there is this news in the newspaper called The World. This is the Spanish-speaking newspaper El Mundo, one with the largest circulation in Spain, and the television channel in Spain are interested in the interview. For example, Telemadrid, the main channel of the capital from Madrid, and other television channels are also going to come to record the trial. And starting next week, I can assure you that the big Spanish television channels are going to echo what is happening in this one trial. And I think the trials that are going to have a rebound effect in other countries. What happens that, for reasons that right now is not appropriate to comment on, the amount to which my client could be sentenced would surely be zero, I believe. But if we lose, it will be for €0. That is what I believe. But even if we lose, we will lose in costs about €4,000 approximately. Obviously, the Association of Jehovah's Witnesses could ask for a lot of money, but I think that right now we are in a procedural moment. Let's say, due to legal and procedural techniques, I think that any amount that can someone ask for will be dismissed. Therefore, we can lose our name, the Association of Victims, in the sense that the Jehovah's Witnesses win in terms of what it seems to be violated according to them. But our strategy, which are those two pillars that's already been in the news for decades, that talks about the same problem, therefore it's not very easy to argue. It already says that what other media have been saying for decades. And apart of that, we are going to try to demonstrate that the veracity of the information, because 70 testimonies, even 75 people that have gathered in very short time. In the future, we are going to gather even more. We are going to tell the testimony that they received the account of the truth. Therefore, we are not telling anything that is a lie, not at all. And at the end, this is a very important, And the most important thing, the purpose of my defendant is not to insult or harass the Jehovah's Witnesses. The end is critical. The end is preventative, so that the Spanish society and societies of this world knows what is happening within the Jehovah's Witnesses. So it is an end of informative, preventative criticism, and fundamentally to help people who are inside or outside of Jehovah's organization so that they feel supported by an association of victims of Jehovah's Witnesses. Therefore, I believe that we have already won. The victims are already winning, especially when they manifest in court everything that has happened to them. Therefore, we have already won. Their victims are winning. They are winning, and they are going to win no matter what happens, because they are going to tell what is happening, the plain truth.
What are your expectations?
My expectation, I will say it again, is positive, because Jehovah's Witnesses said on the first day in the first trial session that they did not know all the news. I read some news to them, the news that exists in recent newspapers about the Jehovah's Witnesses. They said that they did not know about those news, which has already shown to the world, and it shows, let's say, certain communicative enclosure of Jehovah's Witnesses members who do not know about the news that is famous as the Australian Royal Commission, or that of the Candace Conti case in the United States. So when I read them the news, they came to recognize that indeed of this news is like it is normal for people to have a negative image of Jehovah's Witnesses, and that they are victims who have the right to say that they are victims. Of course, they were forced to say this because of the abundant evidence in the news. This means that the news that they were almost unaware of, and it got to the point where they themselves felt like they were victims, as my client's association, but when they read the news, they came to recognize that it is normal for someone that the news to have a negative and critical image of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and that the victims who have said that in the news feel like victims. Therefore, they were agreeing with us. Something particularly happened to the four of the Jehovah's Witnesses, two of them, and if I remember correctly, they came to say that indeed ostracism is practiced in the organization. That is, one expelled or disfellowshipped who has none or the minimum or necessary social contact with the expelled, which confirms a large part of the manifestations of the association of the victims. Look at this. In the trial, the first session lasted 7 hours. That means that the judge in this case wants to know what really happens inside the Jehovah's Witnesses. It is not normal for a session in a trial of this nature to last 7 hours in its first session, and the others last more or less the same. So surely there will be a fifth session or sixth session inclusive, because the judge is very interested in knowing what is really happening within the Jehovah's Witnesses in Spain, so much so that in our response to the lawsuit, we have announced that these testimonies that we have provided, approximately 7 victims by now, constitute evidence of criminality, and that at the appropriate time to process them. Therefore, my expectation is positive the first day of the trial. There is also a positive sign that we've got several important contradictions on the part of the Jehovah's Witnesses witness during the trial. They also came to recognize that it is indeed normal for people to have such a negative image of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and that the associated victims' experiences are logical, since they are news and they are victims who says that. Therefore, I did not expect them to say this at all. So we have already achieved something very positive. On the first day also helped the second and third days too, especially when the victims declare a very positive impression, and everything will be declared in this trial for sentence on December the 15th. It is something possible that can be extended to 2 or more sessions though. This legal step that the religious organization in Spain of the Jehovah's Witnesses has taken, where there is a rumor that someone has come and somehow authorizes that the strategy of the Jehovah Witnesses in Spain to take a lawsuit against the Association of Victims because there may be a huge repercussion or greater effect against the one who sues in this case and will surely reach Latin American countries. I am already hearing some of these rumors, things from Mexico and victims from Mexico who want to tell the truth. And funny enough, in Mexico, I am going to publish within a month or so at the end of this year or the beginning of 2023, I am going to publish a book called The Sects in Mexican Criminal Law with the publisher Walters Publishing House and Box Mexico will publish it. Therefore, perhaps also this book where I make proposals for legal reforms, where I explain the concept of cognitive personalization, and hopefully victims in Mexico will have more courage and more confidence to denounce everything that has happened to them within the Jehovah's Witnesses. Therefore, we are in a historic moment. This is the first stone, the first step. Thanks to the reckless demand of the religious organization of the Jehovah's Witnesses, they are building the way for the truth to come to light. Rather, all these procedures that are happening in the trials, and hopefully next time I can give you good news, which is we have won.